Okay, kindergarten, today we're going to be starting the painting of our rainbow fish. Now, before we paint, I will be asking you to use your black Sharpie markers to trace over all of your pencil lines. Get all of those things traced so that when we're finished with this project, our colors will pop and be nice and bright. So once you're done with tracing all of your pencil lines, every single one of them, with the Sharpie, you will be ready to start your watercolor painting. So I want to show you a few little things about watercolor painting. First of all, watercolor paints must have water in order for them to work. Without the water, they are dry. So we have to always have our little dish of water when we're using the watercolor paints. I'll be putting out a few color palettes for you, so you will get to pick and choose which ones you want to use. But what we usually do is we start with our lightest colors first. So if indeed you want to use light colors such as yellow or light orange, those are probably the colors you want to be using first. And then move on to your darker colors like your green, your blue, your purples. Okay? Now you're going to be able to paint your rainbow fish however you want to. It's entirely up to you what colors you want to use. So I'm going to show you a few things here. If I would like to use my yellow, I would start with my lightest color of yellow first. And when you're holding your brush, kindergarten, you want to try to make sure you're holding your brush down here near this little bump. That's where you're going to have the best control of your brush. Put your brush in your hand similar to a pencil, and you're simply going to use a very smooth motion, filling in your color. Try to stay in your lines the best that you can. So perhaps I would do a line of yellow here, and it's entirely up to you, like I said, whatever and however you want to add your color. Sometimes you have to add a little more water to your paint to get it to work, but we don't want puddles on your paper. So just keep in mind, you have to balance out the water with the paint. The more water you use, the lighter your color is going to be, and the less water you use, the darker your color is going to be. So I'll kind of show you a little example of that. I'll switch colors now. I must clean my brush out in the water. Please don't tap your brush or lean on the edge of the dish, because that will spill your water and tapping will splatter. If you need to wipe your brush, just dab it on a paper towel that's near to you. So perhaps now I'll move on to a little bit of a darker color. I'll go with like this darker red right here. And I'm going to show you how using different amounts of water will change how dark the color is. So here I have a lot of water, which will make my color very, very light. Now if I want to make it a little darker, I don't add water. I use just a little teeny tiny bit here, and I can make that color a little bit darker. See the difference between the two? Same color. This one has more water, this one has less water. The other thing you want to think about and be aware of, if you're painting next to an area that's already wet, you have to be careful or else your colors will blend together. So if this area of yellow was still wet, this orange would blend into it or bleed into it. So if you don't want that to happen, let that area dry first, then you can go ahead and paint next to it. But notice how my bristles on my brush are very smooth. They're not sticking out in all directions. We don't want them to have what I call a bad hair day. We don't want our brushes to have a bad hair day. So you should be painting very gently, very smoothly, trying to stay in your lines. If you go back and forth, you might put a hole in your paper, so be careful about that. I'm going to go back over this one because I want this to be a little darker like the rest. And I try to stay in my lines, covering all of the white areas. And again, if I want to switch colors, what do I need to do? I need to clean out my brush in the water before I go and dip into a new color. That's very, very important. so that we don't mess up our paints. We don't want to mix our colors in our palettes. Maybe now I'll move on to a little bit of a darker color here. And I'll go ahead and paint that. So take your time with painting, enjoy it, have fun. Keep in mind that painting is something that is very peaceful, very gentle, sort of like when you pet your dog or your cat, you're being very gentle, very smooth with your motions. That's the same thing you should be doing when you're painting with your brush. When you are done for the day, put your brush into your water dish. We'll close our paint palettes, and then I'll call you to bring over your pictures to the drying rack. Happy painting!